Welcome to a very special preseason episode of College Football Game Day Live. I am your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by the godfather of recruiting, Mike Farrell of Mike Farrell Sports. Today we're going to be talking about Big Ten totals and Notre Dame preseason win totals. Mike, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're talking about football. We're in August. We are almost to preseason football.
We're almost there. We're getting close.
We're almost there. We have a lot to get to today, so let's get right to it. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish are first on the docket today. Preseason win total of 8.5. Mike, what do you think of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this year? Last year, really tough season for them. Obviously, over the offseason, Marcus Freeman goes out, gets rid of his quarterback room, brings in Mr. Sam Hartman. What do you think that does for that team ceiling?
Well, a lot of Notre Dame fans said last year they wouldn't have lost the game against Marshall or Stanford had they had a quarterback. Some of them think they wouldn't have lost to USC had they had a quarterback. So now they have a quarterback. He's the most talented quarterback they've had since Brady Quinn, probably. So expectations are high. The schedule is not easy, though. Freeman will be better as a second-year coach. I think he was, he did good in the Ohio State game in the opener. Then there were some moments of tightness against Stanford and Marshall, and those were bad losses. I don't think you're going to see bad losses. So I don't think you're going to see a Central Michigan loss or anything like that. But this schedule is very tricky to me. Navy's not a problem. Tennessee State's not a problem. Central Michigan shouldn't be a problem. But, man, Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, USC, Pitt, and Clemson in a row. And then Hartman going to play his team Wake Forest, which shouldn't be an issue. It's tough. I know the line is 8.5. I think they should go 9-3. But I just think the safest thing is to say under. There's too many potential losses out there. This could be an 8-4 season. That's how I'm seeing it, even with Sam.
Oh, okay. I'm going over on Notre Dame, and I know I disagree with a whole lot of people I respect, including yourself. You just got added to the list, but I have to go over on this one. That's how much I respect, apparently, Sam Hartman. I really like that kid's game. And, now he's working behind this really good offensive line. Notre Dame has skill talent, too. Obviously, the running back room with Estime, they have pretty good wide receiver talent as well. And that defense is good. Marcus Freeman now, you brought up some of the times he stubbed his toe last year, and that's fair enough. But they also kept things close and did pretty well against some good teams on the other side of it. And contextually last year, you lose your starting quarterback right away. You were down to Drew Pine, who, I'm sorry, Arizona State for shooting some strays here, but he's arguably a MAC quarterback, and Drew Pine, he had to go through the entire season like that. They had lost their primary receiving target to injuries as well, so they didn't really have any receiving targets. So he basically had a MAC quarterback only throwing to a tight end all season. Every defense knew what they were doing. So it was just sort of tough with that. You had this paint-by-numbers offense. They got through with that and whatnot. But, that's what made them susceptible to upsets. Now you have Sam Hartman, a guy who has been awesome in clean pockets his entire career at Wake Forest, even though he had to run this slow mesh that invited pressure right into his kitchen. He's working behind one of the best offensive lines in college football, one that's going to contend with the Michigans and a couple other ones for that Joe Moore Award. My system spit out a 9.6 wins for Notre Dame. They do have those 3 ridiculously hard games. My system put out 1.5 wins for Notre Dame over those 3 games. The other 9 games, though, set up very well for Notre Dame. I'm bullish on Notre Dame this season, so we'll see how that goes. But I like Notre Dame. I like the Irish. I'm going to go.
It's tough. They destroyed Clemson last year. You assume the Ohio State game is 1 loss. In your system, that's got to be a loss. USC, you assume, is a loss as well, even though they played them close. So there's 2 losses. So then you're playing with that 8.5 number. You've got to win all the rest. Duke is no joke. They're a good football team. Louisville, we'll see how the new coach works there. Pitt is a tough out always. It's going to be tricky. So the reason I'm saying under is simply because I'm counting 2 losses, USC and Ohio State, and that means they have to go 9-1. And there's just some potential losses here that scare me. So we disagree on this one. I would play the safe bet, go under, you're over. And we'll see how good Sam Hartman is in this new offense.
Yeah, I just think they're going to get one win out of those three toughies. And then, the rest of in the other 9, I think they're running the table. I'm saying Notre Dame's going 10-2. I'm bullish on Notre Dame, Mike. I'm bullish. Irish Nation. Irish Nation. Yeah, I think Notre Dame is back this year. I'm sorry, but I really like Notre Dame.
We shall see.
Yeah, moving to the Big Ten now. Speaking of bullish, Thor is super bullish on this one, despite the fact that Jim Harbaugh was suspended for the 4 cupcakiest games in the history of cupcakes we won't get into the
remember last year's first 4 were the cupcakiest games.
Oh yeah,
is this worse?
Yeah, comparing the texture of the softness of those two things.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Yeah, we got to talk to someone about the non-con scheduling at Michigan. It reminded me when I went to undergrad at Kansas, and they would deliberately go for the easiest of the easy FBS teams when they were doing the non-con scheduling.
UConn, Hawaii. Who else was in that murderer's row to open the season? This is why he could be like, we're going to split starters. Yeah, because you're playing Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn. Yeah. I guess Maryland's got a pulse. So maybe it's not 4 games last year. The projected win percentage for these 4 games for Michigan is 99% for each game. It's crazy.
Yeah, fourth one this year is Rutgers.
Easier than last year, but I'm bullish on Michigan as well. Continue.
Yeah, well, and so the Wolverines this year win total at 10.5. So we do have a bit of an elevated one for the Wolverines this year. So Mike, moving to the Big Ten with the Wolverines this year at 10.5, you go over or under this win total?
I go over. I'm bullish big time on Michigan. I think this is the best team Harbaugh has had on paper. The offensive line is going to be, rock solid as well. Corum coming back from injury, but he should be fine. Donovan Edwards, to me, could have a breakout Bijan Robinson type of season. He's that talented. J.J. McCarthy, is maturing. He's getting better. He had the 2 pick sixes against TCU, bounced back from that a little bit. He's very, very focused. Defense is good. I don't see a weakness. The only weakness I could see perhaps is perhaps the outside speed at wide receiver. But this team, the way this sets up, now, of course, you've got Ohio State at the end of the season. They've won 2 in a row on that. You have to consider that sort of a toss-up because it's at Ohio State, at Penn State. But what else is really a challenge here? I mean, the first 4 games, as we mentioned, are cupcakes. Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue, Maryland, none of those teams are going to beat them. So if you look at that alone, you got to be on the over here. 10.5 is a high number. I mean, really, you have to go 11-1 to win. But I think really the only true loss I could see is probably Ohio State at the end of the season.
Yeah, I love this roster. Michigan is my pick to win the national title this year. I don't
disagree. I don't disagree.
Yeah, I absolutely love this roster.
Well, I'll tell you this, Thor. I got Georgia because I'm going to go with Georgia. I'm going to go with the SEC. I'm going to go with them 1 3 in a row. But I think this is the year Michigan gets to the championship game at the very least. They're going to make the playoff. They're going to get to the championship game. They could win it all. So I'm not disagreeing completely with you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard not to pick those 2 teams to be in it, right? And I think Michigan, I mean, they're the one team that you would pick that's going to give Georgia trouble if you were to do it like that. In 10 regular season games this year, my system has Michigan installed as 16 points or better favorites. And then in the other 2, my system has Michigan as 3 points. Well, the Ohio State game, they have my system has Michigan as 3-point favorites. And then that's at home for Michigan. And then on the road at Penn State, my system has Michigan as 3.9-point favorites. That's the 12 games right there. My system has Michigan 11.1 in terms of the total win projection for the entire season. I'm definitely going over the 10.5. Like I said, I expect them to win the conference, the Big Ten. I expect them to win the championship. So definitely going over on Michigan. I agree with everything you said. McCarthy absolutely is a prime NFL prospect. They have the best backfield tandem in the nation. The receivers, they're okay. It's the one part of the team that you point to where it's like, little bit lower. They have the best offensive line in the nation, which is crazy. They've won the last 2 Joe Moore Awards, and they still have the best offensive line in the nation. Jim Nagy, the czar of the Senior Bowl, a month ago puts out that they have 7 guys on the Senior Bowl watch list for this coming class. That's ludicrous in lieu of the fact that they've won the last 2 Joe Moore Awards, and they just sent multiple guys to the NFL draft this year, and they did so in the previous class as well. It's absolutely ludicrous that they have 7 prospects for this coming class.
Man. I mean, you plug and play the Darius Henderson, Miles Hinton into it's the portal. I mean, it's a big
stupid.
Deal. So,
it's absolutely stupid.
That you don't have to develop them out of high school as much anymore. He does a great job of that. Harbaugh does, but then he can go out and pluck a couple guys, Drake Nugent, guys like that are coming in. So they're just the only way is if they do a Harbaugh, and by a Harbaugh I mean just play down to one opponent like they did in his first few seasons when he was 8-4 and 9-3. If they just play down to an opponent, leave him hanging around. And struggle in one game and drop a game that they shouldn't lose. Then other than that, it comes down to Ohio State, fast forward to the 12th game of the season, and you win and you're in. And that's why Ohio State, who's coming up next, is extremely interesting to me because can you possibly take Michigan over 10.5 and Ohio State over 10.5 and just assume that one game determines all your gambling future of your life?
Well, you definitely can't be bullish on the top 3 teams in that division, right? And I mean, sort of spinning it forward, I'm also kind of bullish on Penn State. So I am not bullish moving on to Ohio State. They would be the one team I would shade the other way. So moving to Ohio State, they also have that 10.5 number around the market. My system's number on Ohio State is 10.7. So my system is right around that Vegas number. I'm not there though. I would actually lean, if I had to, I would lean under on Ohio State. I'm not betting that one though. But mostly because I already have I have all the tickets on Michigan. And I also have tickets on Penn State. Ohio State is the one team that I'm fading. What say you, Mike Farrell?
Yeah, I'm not betting that either because I don't know who the quarterback is. And I know there's talent. Obviously they have arguably the top 2 wide receivers in the country on the same roster. The defense has been a bone in contention for a lot of Ohio State fans. It's not bad at all. Up front, they're going to be better, because they've got really talented guys who are, gaining more experience, and there could be a couple breakout guys there. I'm not sure about the linebackers tackling in space, although they have talent there, and arguably the best linebacker in the Big Ten. Secondary is a big question mark, but I don't care. Whoever gets this quarterback job, whether it's Brown or McCord, is going to put up monster numbers. He's going to have so many targets to choose from. They've got the 1-2 punch at running back too if TreVeyon Henderson's back healthy. The problem I have with this is there's 3 games on here that I worry about, and they're all on the road. At Notre Dame. Now, we just talked. I think that's an Ohio State win, but it's still a tricky game. They struggled last year against a Notre Dame team that I thought they were going to beat them by 30. At Wisconsin, I worry about. That's a tough place to play. Luke Fickell's a great coach. They've got a new offense. There's going to be some bumps in the road there, but that's a trap game to me because it follows the Penn State game. And I know you're bullish on Penn State, and we'll get to that in a second. It's at home against Penn State. That's going to be a difficult game. You go from Penn State the next weekend to at Camp Randall, and then you finish with at Michigan. So there's 3 road games here that worry me. That's why I'm not betting it at all. I'm with you on Michigan. I'm not betting Ohio State because, Ryan Day's under pressure, man. He's the only coach in the country that I know needs to go 11-0, or people are going to say that he should be fired. and he really needs to go 12-0 because he can't lose a Michigan game 3 in a row. But people look at the Michigan, they say Michigan game, Ryan Day needs to win that or he's going to get fired. He needs to win all 11 of these games prior to that. If he goes 10-1 heading into Michigan, he's in big, big trouble. I don't think he's going to get fired, but everybody's going to freak out. So there's so much pressure on Ryan Day, and he did a brilliant coaching job, in my opinion, against Georgia. They had that game. The defense did let them down, but I'm not taking over 10.5 on Ohio State.
Yeah, that's all well said. It's just too much up in the air for me. You don't know what's going on at the quarterback position, and then you have like the road games at Notre Dame and Michigan, coin flippy type games, and then the Penn State and Wisconsin games. They're not gimmies either, and so you're sort of counting on whether it's McCord or Brown to be sort of ready-made stars right away, and Stroud was right, but like you can't count on that. Every single Haskins was. Yeah.
The numbers for the first-year quarterbacks under Ryan Day at Ohio State are just astronomically unbelievable. So you assume they're going to be good. They're going to put up 45 touchdowns, 6 picks, something crazy like that. But it's still a difficult assumption when you're laying your own money on it.
It is. And it's sort of, it has to be that for them to go over that number, right? Like, I mean, that's what this thing is set at. And if it's not that, they're going under because of the schedule and everything like that. So I just can't get there with it. The other teams are too good. And, Michigan, their roster, it is top 2 or 3 in the nation in terms of like how I view it, at least. And then Penn State, well, we'll talk about them in a second. I really like that team. And so, and then, the Notre Dame matchup and everything like that. I don't know. So I just got to fade Ohio State this year. Moving to the aforementioned Penn State Nittany Lions, the market has hung a 9.5 win total on them. Mike, this is a really interesting team. James Franklin, a guy who drew some criticism, at various times throughout a tenure that has gotten, I think, longer than some people maybe thought it was going to at certain times. There's during various times of his tenure is like, oh, James is he's talking to this program, he's looking there, but he's actually made it quite a while at this point. But like there was times where during his tenure there where Penn State couldn't run. There was a few seasons where the offensive line was bad or the running back room was only sort of okay. And then there was longer stretches, basically his entire tenure, where he was playing quarterbacks that were physically limited. They were just sort of these station to station guys who were, to be fair, reliable. They were like sort of the heady kids, whatnot. Now we've gone the opposite way. Franklin has a really good offensive line now, headlined by Fashanu, who's an absolute stud. The NFL cannot believe that he spurned them. He has 2 amazing running backs. Just thoroughbred running backs, just amazing running backs. And then Alar, the new quarterback coming in, has an absolute gun. So, like, the ceiling of this team has gotten really, really interesting. You are the recruiting guy. Like, everything about these kids, and especially Alar. We don't have a lot of exposure on this kid so far. What do you think about Alar? What do you think about Penn State?
So, some people had him as a 5-star coming out. I did not. I had him as a high 4. Same with J.J. McCarthy, though. Some people had him as a 5-star. I had him as a high 4. I'm really, really picky with 5-star quarterbacks. Big cannon arm. We haven't really seen a lot of what he can do. We've seen, bits and pieces. It really all depends on him and the wide receivers. As you mentioned, the offensive line is going to be strong. Running game is going to be very, very effective. Tight end, I think Theo Johnson, has a strong year. Tyler Warren, they've got tight ends. They recruit that position very well. Defensively, Chop Robinson coming off the edge with Isaac, the great pass rush should be. Abdul Carter's a beast. Curtis Jacobs back at linebacker. And the secondary is so good that, a Storm Duck transfers in there and transfers out within like 2 months. Can't even crack this too deep. They're deep everywhere except wide receivers. Dante Cephas is going to be very important to them, how good he's going to be, and the quarterback position. So, when you look at the schedule, you look at 2 games at Ohio State and at home against Michigan. Even if you assume those are losses, and James Franklin has not done well against those programs, so you have to assume those are losses. Can they win the other 10 games? West Virginia, Delaware, at Illinois. Illinois is not going to be the same football team they were last year. Iowa still doesn't have an offense. Northwestern's horrible. UMass is even worse. Indiana's awful. At Maryland, not a rivalry game, even though Maryland thinks it is. Rutgers, Michigan State, they all stink. So I'm taking even if they lose those 2 games that they lose every year, I still have 10-2, and I'm above that 9.5 number.
Yeah, my number on them is on Penn State is 10.1. At the 9.5 number, I shade them over. And you have this, like I say, you have the ceiling with that team now. I really like the defense, even though they lost Joey Porter Jr. The secondary is still nasty. They have all the edge rusher guys. Manny Diaz did awesome last year, and he has that system where he loves to send the heat. This personnel fits him so well because the secondary is really good. You can leave those guys on islands, and then they have all the edge rusher guys. Like, it's not just Chop and the guys that you mentioned. Like, they have depth there, so you can just send waves of guys and then leave the secondary on islands. And then the offense we mentioned, all those guys. You have the ceiling now where it's not just before in Franklin's time they like prioritize and fetishize the efficiency. I think now you have the explosive element with that unit as well. So I just really like that squad. And now I think you have the shot of perhaps a down Ohio State season. At least that's in play. So I'm going to go over on Penn State. Guys, before we move on, I think y'all should download the free Betting Pros app. I've got the thing, and I'm going to be on it all season. If you do, you're going to notice this fall that you're going to get all my picks on there as they happen, because they show up like on your iPhone, like the alerts. It'll like literally tell you when I put them in. You'll get the alert on your iPhone thing, like of my picks, like literally as I put them in, and then all my colleagues' picks. I'm not a big technology guy, but that's just, I'm a boomer, I guess is Debro always calls me a boomer.
Young boomer. I'm an old boomer. I have the app too.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
You got it.
Not just for college football. I mean, for the fantasy,
for all of them.
NFL fantasy football, it's definitely a go-to app.
Yeah, and like the NFL guys, when they put their picks in, and I need those ones, like Mike, you and I, we're the college football pick guys, right? Like, but like in the NFL, I don't know what I'm doing. So I need like our NFL guys when they put in their picks, and then I need those like live, because then I can bet their advice, because I don't know what I'm doing in the NFL.
You just hammered Jalen Hyatt for his route running today. You follow the NFL. I know you're a college guy. You hammer NFL guys like crazy, but those guys know a little bit more about the NFL than we do. But you got to understand, all those guys in the NFL came from college, and they all came from high school, following them forever. So I still rely on those guys, even though I'm supposed to know what I'm talking about. So the app's very valuable.
For sure. The other thing with that app, so, and this is a really cool thing. I actually learned about this on our work trip, because we have a bunch of people that work behind the scenes that like, invented all this stuff or like put all this stuff together. But you can sync the app to your sports book. So it tracks all this different stuff. It tracks your bets across all sports books into one spot. So you can track all your data and stuff like that. You'll get insights and personalized recommendations for props, which is another really cool feature of it. Game picks and more tailored to your interests. And then to enjoy all the benefits of the Sportsbook Sync, download the Sportsbook app by visiting bettingpros.com/app or search Betting Pros in the App Store. So definitely do that today. All right, Mike, moving on to the next team in the Big Ten, the Wisconsin Badgers. Very interesting team. Obviously the Luke Fickell hire, that was sort of shocking to me. He had stayed at Cincinnati after the college football berth and every football playoff berth and everything like that. Then they're moving up into the Big 12, and then he books it for Wisconsin. It's like was that I would have thought he could have got, sorry to Wisconsin, but could have gotten a bigger job after that.
Well, remember, he was linked with USC. There was some other jobs that he was linked with that were bigger, but he wants to stay in the Big Ten, but just get out of Ohio. This guy coached, he played in high school in Ohio. He coached, he played college in Ohio. He coached in Ohio. Maybe he just wanted to get out of Ohio and just finally just chose Wisconsin as his place.
Yeah. And then so it wasn't the only interesting thing. So Wisconsin goes and gets him. And then in one of the more fascinating, probably the most fascinating coordinator hire of the entire cycle, stunning one, he goes and steals Phil Longo from Mac Brown. Longo leaves the opportunity to coach Drake May for his last season and then just goes to Wisconsin, a school that has run this ground and pound offense for the last, 30 years, 40 years. So this is going to be really interesting. The Badgers have a win total set at 8.5 this year. Mike, what do you think of the Badgers this fall?
I'm going over. This schedule is so easy. Other than Ohio State, the game, and that's a Camp Randall, and like I said, that could be tricky for Ohio State. Even if you project them to lose to Ohio State, I mean, Buffalo, Washington State, Georgia Southern to start the season. At Purdue, they should handle Purdue. Purdue's got a new coach. We'll get to them, I think, down the line here. Rutgers is awful. I know Iowa is going to be a different game. Iowa's defense is tremendous. They can hang with anybody. I still don't believe in their offense at all, and I believe in Phil Longo. I believe in Tanner Mordecai. I think Braylon Allen's going to be better. The running back situation at UNC got overlooked because of Sam Howell and Drake May. He was putting together, really good seasons for his running backs, save for 1 year, and putting guys in the NFL. So I give them the nod there. At Illinois, I'm still not as bullish. I think Illinois was kind of a fluke last season. Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, Minnesota. I mean, I'm not saying 11-1, but I'm saying 9-3. So give me the over.
I got to go over on this too, and it's for all the reasons you stated. The schedule, on the one hand, I am trepidatious about teams that make sort of precipitous scheme changes like this in one off season. But on the other hand, they brought in guys from the portal that have played in similar systems. You mentioned Mordecai and stuff like that. That assuages some of the concerns. Another thing that assuages it is not only the soft schedule, but particularly soft at the beginning. Some of your harder opponents are stacked at the end. So you have it's like the runway for the plane where you don't have to take off until later. So I think by the time they get into November, you're going to be way more familiar with that system and whatnot. Because of that easy schedule, my system has a 9.6 wins for Wisconsin. My system has way over. Yeah. I mean, my system had Wisconsin as 9-point or more favorite in the majority of these games and favorite in every game, but I think just a couple, or one, I think, it's
not favorite against Ohio State. I don't see another team that wouldn't be favored.
That's it. Yeah, and to be fair, a double-digit dog against Ohio State. I was squinting because I was like, "Is that right?" But that is right.
So Ohio State's. Yeah. And we're going to get to this as we get to the podcast throughout the year, but Ohio State is going to have a very high inflationary point spread favor over some teams that they shouldn't, and this is one of those games. Like I said, it follows the Penn State game. It's on the road. Double digit. We'll see if that drops below, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. But the only real game here, that they maybe, and they're at home, Iowa, and we're going to get to them next because you don't know what to expect from Iowa. They've got a new quarterback. They brought in some offensive weapons, but I'd still take Wisconsin in every game but Ohio State as far as the point spread.
Yeah, and we'll hit Iowa quick here because I know you got to get out of here in a second. So we'll hit Iowa quick, and then we'll hit some of the unders that we're going in rapid fire. With the Hawkeyes, we have a Vegas win total that is down to 7.5. Now there's some questions around the Hawkeye program with around both the programs in Iowa, in the state of Iowa. The Hunter Decker story dropped a couple of days ago. There's reports that there could be more guys in the Iowa State program that have legal woes because of the sports gambling thing. There's been an Iowa kicker that has already been embroiled in this. Is there going to be any other guys in the Iowa program? So that stuff is sort of swirling around right now, but we don't know of any other guy, that's involved with that, as of now, whatnot. So that's as of early August is where we're sort of talking about that, in the moment. But Iowa does have 9 starters returning on offense, 7 on defense, with a win total, like I said, 7.5. Mike, what do you think of the Hawkeyes?
I mean, Kirk Ferentz is 8-4 every year. I mean, you know Iowa better than I do. I know that's just sort of saying things out loud, but from a 20,000-foot view, Iowa is the perfect 8-4 football team. Their defense will keep them in everything. Their offense will keep them from winning certain games they should. This is just who they are. they're an 8-win football team. So if you put them any year under Kirk Ferentz under 8, I'm taking the over. And you put them at 8.5, I'm taking the under. So 7.5, I'm taking the over.
I gotta go over as well. The defense is going to be a little down. Obviously, they lost a whole bunch of guys in the NFL draft there, but they never fell outside of the top 20 with regards to that. And the offense should be way up this year. Brian Ferentz now has the contractual incentive to go faster on offense. Plus, they brought in a whole bunch of guys there: Cade McNamara, Eric All. They brought in the Ohio State receiver, who I think is the highest rated receiver that Ferentz has ever signed. Caleb Johnson comes back. All five offensive linemen, starters come back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully there's not a shoe dropping on Iowa with regards to all that stuff swirling in the ether. But barring that, I think they're going over that 7.5 number. Mike, let's go rapid fire on some of these unders. It sounds like we've been going over on a lot, but we do have a lot of unders, or at least I do in this conference. I actually have 4 of them. Mike, I'm going to give you a potpourri here, and I'll give you all of my unders. Michigan State, their total is 5.5. My system's total is 5, so I go under on that one. Purdue, Vegas total is 5.5. My system's total is 4.6. I go under on that one, of course. Indiana, the Vegas total is 4. My system's total is 2.8. I hate that team, and I think Tom Allen is getting I think he's going to walk the plank in October. And then, Northwestern. I was lucky enough to get this one at 3.5. You can't get that anymore. It's 3 now. My system's total on them is 2.5, but I think I'd probably still go under on that because I don't see any chance to get to 4 wins. Any of those that you want to talk about just quick before I got to let you go?
State, 5 and 7. I agree with you on that. So that's under 5.5. Indiana 3 and 9. That's well under 4. It should be 3.5. They're not that good. I've been doing these positional breakdowns, of each unit in the Big Ten, and Indiana is always last, or if they're not last, Northwestern's last. They just don't have a good roster. They don't have a lot of talent on that football team. Northwestern is just in shambles and dismay, and they're never getting above that 3. So I do the under there. Purdue, and the only reason I say Purdue, I know he's a new head coach. I know there's some questions as to whether he's ready or not. I like the new offense. I like Hudson Card in that new offense. I'm very high on Hudson Card compared to other people. I like what I saw from him at Texas. I like what I saw from him at a high school as a kid who really wasn't a pure quarterback. He's an athletic guy, similar to Tannehill, who developed into a quarterback but still has that athleticism of a different position player. I like Devin Mockabee as a running back. I like their offensive line. It's okay. They're not going to world beat, but to me, if you're talking about 5.5, I think this is a 6-6 football team. So I would go over on Purdue, under on all the others.
Okay. Well, guys, that's all the time we have for today. For Mike Farrell, I am Thor Nystrom. We'll see you next week as we discuss the win totals for 2 more Power 5 conferences.